Welcome back to another video of mine. Hold up a second, I need to cut my fingernails. Now where was I? Oh yeah, well unfortunately another Mortal Kombat game has found itself onto one of these videos, and this time the central character you play as is Jax. You know, Jax, one of the most popular characters from a Mortal Kombat game, up there with Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Talking about Sub-Zero, this game is the second attempt of a more action-adventure style Mortal Kombat game and turned out horribly due to a troubled development cycle. The co-creator of Mortal Kombat, John Tobias, and many other staff left in 1999, and the original plot for Special Forces, which initially featured Sonya Blade, was greatly altered. The game was then rushed to completion for a mid-year release in 2000, and was shat on by critics more than the actresses in Two Girls One Cup. So, let me loosen my belt, pull down my pants, and be the next person to shit on this game. The game starts with me pressing the start button on the controller. No, before that, a strange cutscene plays that introduces the characters in a similar style to a cheesy Saturday morning cartoon. I know that Mortal Kombat has never been consistent tone-wise, but hitting the players with an intro that's like an anime on meth shows the developers didn't really care about this game in the end. The story sees Kano freeing his Black Dragon gang from prison, and Jax is tasked with stopping them from retrieving an artifact. The voice actor for Jax sounds like he's deep-throating the microphone and would be unable to deliver emotion in his lines even if his life depended on it. He sounds like the only vocal lessons he could afford only got up to teaching the voice actors how to sound half asleep for lines.
Tell operations ETA 60 seconds to the warehouse. Inform Lieutenant Sanchez not to infiltrate the warehouse until my arrival.
As Jax mumbles through his dialogue, his base operative, Gemini, informs Jax of the situation at hand, delivering lines as sloppily as diarrhea being delivered into a toilet, and sounds like Midway just got their secretary to do her dialogue.
It turns out that the Black Dragon has tried to put on a respectable face.
In fact, you learn more about her, an unseen character, than you learn about any major villain in this game. The gameplay is somewhat like Mythologies, with Jax gaining experience as he kills enemies with punches and kicks, unlocking different moves as he levels up. Some of these moves have classic names such as Get Some Sucker, Chump Change, and Taking Out the Trash. The Taking Out the Trash move is kind of useless as it just sees Jax throw a copy of this game into the bin, instead of damaging anyone. You have limited lives, restoring your health by picking up and using health kits. At the end of each level, a member of Kano's gang is conveniently left behind so Jax can kill them for a boss fight. The atrocious visuals of Mythologies return for Special Forces, with the graphics being muddier than a pig's pen and character models being blockier than Legoland. While there is the typical Mortal Kombat hand-to-hand combat, guns play a big part in Special Forces and is primarily the reason I hated this game so much. When you get shot, Jax gets stopped from moving briefly and can easily get stun-locked by machine gun fire, chunking his health easily. This weakness to being shot is confusing as Jax has quite a large stature, with an eighth of him being metallic, and you'd think he would be used to taking bullets. Oh, I'm not implying Jax will be used to being shot because he's black, it's because he's in the Army Special Forces. The camera angles make the inclusion of guns infuriating, as they never show you what's important, sort of like Japanese porn. Most of the times you'll be shot by enemies off screen, as the camera seems more focused on showing Jax's chiseled blocky pecs rather than the person wanting to kill him. The only way you'll be able to see the enemy is to use the game's first person mode, and is especially egregious when the game kinda forces you to play this as a first person shooter to get through difficult sections. Aiming in first person is more of a pain in the ass than dropping the soap in prison, as you can never seem to center your reticle onto the enemy. With the terrible draw distance in the game, enemies can shoot you further back from your line of vision, and you need to act like a suicidal maniac as you rush towards them, soaking up more bullets than a dreadful FPS player. With this game being cheaper than a Cambodian street hooker, the only way I was able to complete the game was to set the difficulty to easy. Most objectives involve the exciting act of getting the code or key to open a door, with most being on the other side of the level so you can fully appreciate the game's murky, repetitive environments. Some places require explosives to reach objectives, and the area you can place the explosive is indicated by a crack in the wall. However, with this game's camera angles and the disgustingly basic graphics, it makes these cracks about as visible as an ant crawling towards Stevie Wonder. The boss fights are extremely frustrating as they spam you with attacks that knock you over and barely take any damage from your weapons, if you can manage to shoot them. The only real way of defeating them is to get close enough to continuously forcefully punch them to death, if you're lucky enough to get that close to them, as they knock you back if you're near them. The last few levels set in the Outworld are the worst, as they up the ante with how dark the areas are, making most things indistinguishable from one another. These level designs are the most confusing, as most of the ground textures are similar to one another, and as these levels loop back on themselves, it makes navigation harder than usual. Narrow pathways over instant death pitfalls mixed with these controls makes for a lot of unfair deaths to behold. Narrow pathways over instant death pitfalls mixed with these controls makes for a lot of unfair deaths to behold. These areas contain less ammo and health kits, so I was forced to spam cheap attacks to make it through. Thankfully, most enemies were not strapped up with guns, so at least the bullshit the game was serving me was getting mixed up a bit. Well, even though I said the Outworld levels were the worst, the absolute worst part of the game is the start of the fourth mission that I like to call Rocket Valley. This is the only place where enemies use rocket launchers, and you'll see a rocket flying towards you more than you see the enemy that shot it. The blast radius of the rockets mixed with the sluggish controls means you'll very rarely avoid being damaged by a rocket. Bridges can block your line of sight with the enemy, so you'll need to go out and get hit by a rocket to finish off an enemy. To say this level made my blood boil would be an understatement. As tradition, I must perform a fatality on Jax.
Cyrax wins. Flawless victory.
While I have bashed on this game, I believe if it was polished up, it could be a decent title. Once you get used to the controls and have a grasp on how not to die in seconds, the game gets less frustrating and can be fun as you gun enemies down. I believe that if you can put the fact that it's a Mortal Kombat game out of your mind, you can have an alright time with it in places. The fighting can be enjoyable too, as long as you aren't being swarmed by enemies. Despite enjoying a few sections, the game's biggest Achilles heel is how unfair it is. With pathetically uninspired graphics, confusing camera angles, broken bosses and terrible level design, Special Forces is yet another disgrace to the Mortal Kombat name. However, Special Forces is on the better end of the worst games list in terms of quality, and here is the list to prove that. You'll be seeing me in the next video, or maybe you won't if my camera isn't even angled to look at me.
Kano, you're gonna pay for this.